as for the overall talk of a reunion with Pete Alonso and bringing him back, I do want to get into some of the details of recent since the last time that we had our show. Now, some of the reports, they're little, some of them are rumors, and we will get into this as well as we possibly can and try to touch everything, because I know that there's a lot of strong opinions regarding the Pete Alonso discussion. John Heyman, earlier this week, he said that there is a sizable gap in talks at the moment between the Mets and Alonso, but that does not mean that he is gone. The Mets have closed those big gaps before, only that no quick deal appears at hand. Again, that doesn't mean the Mets are out of the mix for Pete and telling him to fuck off. It's not happening. John Heyman also went later on that week saying on MLB Network, saying that the Giants, the Mariners, the Blue Jays, and the Mets are currently in the mix for Pete Alonso. Now, this is the entire thing that went haywire on social media this week. That being, of course, the man who drops all of the annoyance bombs, that being Carlos Baerga, who is a former infielder. He played for the Mets, right? I'm pretty sure he played for the Mets. Yeah. This is just a rumor, and I'm telling you, this is a rumor, highlighting it in red, saying that this is a rumor. Do not take this with a full-on hammer to your wall. Don't go crazy on this one. But Pete Alonso apparently, reportedly, possibly rejected a 3-year, $90 million contract offer from the Mets. He's reportedly looking for $175 million to $200 million on the free agent market. Carlos Baerga said that on X and on Instagram, putting it out. I don't know what all of these rumors are, if they are legit or not. But when it comes to the overall feel of Alonso, of how you look at this entire market, taking in all of these quotes from the Giants to the 390 that was maybe offered to him, to the Mets being far apart with him, unraveling everything from the last week, moving on. I don't know what you guys are going to touch on. You can go as long as you want. There's a lot to be thinking about. Some of it is odd, some of it doesn't make sense, and some of it just leaves you wondering, what the hell does Pete Alonso want at this point?
I still find that I just go back to the report that what the Mets offered him, and he declined it, and not having his greatest season, obviously, just they're not beating that deal. And I just find that them saying no to it, that Boris, really Boris, is just too stubborn to admit that they were wrong not taking the contract that the Mets offered them during the whatever it was, during the season, before the season, whatever it was, by not accepting that and saying, no, we're going to see what the market is. And then the market has not beat that offer. They're like, oh, what are we going to do now? Because they would just kind of look silly and desperate if they just take something that's maybe less than what the Mets offer them. Because, you know, the only team that really, I guess, could strike a fear maybe is the Giants. Because I don't see the Mariners actually playing, like, you know, what needs to be done. I don't see them going to that level. So that's just what I've seen based off how they operate. I don't see them going to the level it would take to get Pete Alonso away from the Mets. Now, Toronto, they're offering a ton of money to everybody, and nobody wants it. Corbin Burns said, I'll take less money to go to Arizona. I mean, and we've heard this, that nobody wants Toronto's money. And they have the whole Vlad situation going on there anyway, and that's a whole financial thing in and of itself.
They have Bo as well.
You got Bo, who, I mean, again, those guys might get traded. Like, I don't know what I don't think Toronto even knows what they're doing, to be honest. Like, they are just all over the place. So I don't count them as a credible threat either. So if you're saying it's between the Mets and the Giants have already, I think I said this before, but already given out their highest contract that they ever gave out to Willy Adames. And while it was a good contract, it wasn't crazy. To see them, you know, kind of dip into that twice.
They also extended Matt Chapman.
And they extended Matt Chapman. So they've already spent a good amount of money on the infield. Do they go that route again and then, you know, try to increase and get Pete Alonso too for a big dollar amount? Maybe. I mean, listen, they've offered big money to Arson Judge. He didn't take it. They've offered, big money to Correa, and, you know, that didn't really work out. So, you know, there's been a lot of different things that have happened in San Francisco too. But I feel like for the Mets, they don't want to end up in a Conforto situation where, you know, you had a fair deal, You didn't take it. You took a short-term deal, and you haven't been quite to get back what you had already been offered, so to speak. So, it's kind of like we said, it's a waiting game. The Mets are not just going to overpay because they're not saying yes to what the Mets are offered. And that's why there's a large gap. I mean, I still feel that the Mets are probably offering something similar to what they already did, and they're just looking for a lot more than that. And from the first base position, I don't see why. I just don't understand their thought process. Because like we've said, we've looked at the Freeman contract. We've looked at the Goldschmidt contract, the Olsen contract. And Pete Alonso is not better than a couple of those guys. So why would the Mets pay more? Especially with how he played this season. He has not shown that he would be worth more than what those guys got. So yeah. I still feel that they're just too stubborn in the Boras camp to admit that they were wrong, declining the offer the Mets gave them before, and then settling maybe for something less or about the same.
Even talking about teams as possible threats, which again, it takes one team to disrupt everything that has been going on and completely take Alonso. And listen, I'm not going to the ends of the earth for this guy. And again, there is one thing about San Francisco that probably would go into the Mets' favor. Yes, Pete is a natural, pure power hitter, great raw power, 80 grade power, some of the best in the league, not the best, but some of the best in the league. And when it comes to his former teammate, I guess it's going to be former teammate because he's most likely going to leave, JD Martinez. Let's not forget the impression that JD Martinez had on Pete Alonso throughout the year, obviously on a lot of the other hitters, Mark Vientos, Brandon Nimmo, other guys in that. Do we not remember JD Martinez when he signed late, publicly going after the Giants saying, their ballpark ain't for me. That ain't for me. That's just not a thing. Point. So again, I'm not saying that the Giants are just a complete,
they did just
here.
Sign Adames, who is right-handed, and Chapman extended. They're all right-handed. So, not all right-handed hitters are
Is it a
same,
good fit? Again, I don't know. Buster Posey, is it a good fit? Because he's their new president of baseball operations. Andrew, where are you going to take this one? To be honest, guys, if you don't want to hear what Andrew has to say, if you are a Pete
get the hell out
fan
of here.
club, I mean, Andrew, here's the thing. I think we all agree, Pete Alonso, there's a limit for pursuing this guy. There is a limit, and I think everybody can agree that, whether he's homegrown or not. If you believe he's going to get $200 million or believe he deserves $200 million, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going to sit here and argue with you because, to be honest, that entire claim, it's damage beyond repair. Andrew, I will go to you. What are you seeing? I am praying that none of our addresses get posted online. What do you have on that massive head of yours?
All right, so I'm not even going to go with Pete first. I'm going to go and I'm going to brutally destroy Scott Boras first. Because who was the guy that put out that crock of shit list of teams? Oh, it's John Heyman. So, I'll even break down the teams even more than what you guys did. So let's start with the Seattle Mariners, a team that I am very close with. A team that I know has $15 million to spend this offseason. That is their budget. $15 million. And not willing to trade Luis Castillo for dump it. No, they want actual and Jerry DiPoto and all that. So I'm going to expect the Seattle Mariners who have been hell-bent, they're spending $15 million this offseason to go give Pete Alonso $4 million. Okay, a good one, Scott. Let's go to Toronto. Let's go to my favorite team that loves me, and the Toronto Blue Jays. Them ham-eating motherfuckers. Well, don't they got a first baseman? Don't they have a first baseman that they need to pay? I get they have Alejandro Clark hitting cleanup right now for him. I understand. They ain't got nobody in that goddamn lineup. Bo's going, and he's going to go be a Brave next year and probably go back to his prime and piss us off. And then Vlad's going to come play for my team. That's why, again, I'm okay letting Pete Alonso work. I'll go get the younger, better one. But no, he's not homegrown, even though Brandon Nimmo's got more WAR. I don't really care. And then the San Francisco Giants, like we said, go hit in a cavernous ballpark, which, again, this is going to piss off Mets fan, but Pete Alonso's got great right center field power. Let's go to AT&T Ballpark where it's like 474 feet with a 50-foot wall to go up right center field power. That's a great fit.
Triples Alley, come on now. Pete always bringing those lead feet down the second base line.
Bro, that tubby dinosaur running for triples, that's crazy. So again, I got Scott Boras. That's the hell of a market, Scott. God, I'm terrified if I want Pete Alonso back on the Mets. Oh my God, $15 million of Seattle and the Giants and the Maple Leaf guys. Yeah, I'm so scared. Good one, Scott. We'll get to now, I guess, more in the Scott slander. I'll leave. I was mean last week, so I'll leave the polar bear. I'll more just focus on Scott Boras. But again, he's not getting that contract back, and he can try to gauge this interest. Unless, a $15 million 1-year deal, which guaranteed Seattle's just going to go back and sign Justin Turner. So they're gone. The Giants have Bryce Eldridge, who is one of the fastest rising prospects in overall in baseball. He's probably playing first base and a left-handed bat to put with those two right-handed bat. I guess prospect suspects, I understand. But with the Giants that, nobody usually takes their money, they need to develop their own players, and they would like to give Bryce Eldridge that opportunity in the next year or two. So yeah, there's that. And again, Toronto, they don't even exist at this point. Nobody wants to go. Freaking Russell Martin and Josh Donaldson are suing them because they're not getting their money, because their money's not real. Besides the point. Now we'll get to Pete. Like we've said, I'm the biggest Pete Alonso fan. Everyone's saying I'm a closet Alonso fan. Love Pete. Besides the point. If he's here, fine, come back. We'll wait until February. You'll sign a 1-year deal, Bellinger type deal, and you're going to have to run, come back. Tuck between your legs. I'm sorry, me no have no brain, me no read the market, my bad. I'll come back, hit 30 homers, and then try to test it again. Oh, let's test it again with Vlad Jr. hitting the market and Josh Naylor hitting the market. Yeah, Pete, if you couldn't be when you are the guy in the market, yeah, you're going to go get paid with Josh Naylor and Vlad Jr. on the first base market. That's a great idea. You played yourself, and like Frank said, get over yourself. Tell Scott, you know what? We got a lot of poo on our face. Call the Mets up. Let's take the Met offer. I'm comfortable. They have good restaurants in New York City, and I can go hit fourth behind Juan Soto, and he'll maybe make the playoffs. Or he's just going to continue to be a little greedy polar bear, and he's going to end up like that polar bear in Texas meme. He signs with the Minnesota Twins. Even though they don't have any money, they just pull something out of nowhere. And again, it could be. Again, we have these teams. One day, maybe the Athletics. You know what? They're spending money all of a sudden. And imagine
they are quite the threat, man.
And think about
it.
And I know Keith was trolling on Twitter, but think about it. You go to a minor league ballpark in your walk here, go hit 70 homers. That's not a terrible idea, but he's not going to do that. So again, don't expect this getting done anytime soon. This is what we're going to have to do, kind of like we did with Soto. At least Soto got it done quick. We still got probably 2 months of this. So I got 2 more months to make fun of this guy. And then when he re-signs, I'll shake his hand and we'll go win a World Series. Until that happens, Polar Bear in Texas, Scott Boras is an idiot. And you know what? We got Juan Soto, so I really don't care.
Scott Boras, he's had his fails. He has had his successes. He's a high roller. That's what you get right there. And that's the main reason as to why we knew that Pete Alonso thought highly of himself when he hired Scott Boras. And then after getting that report that he rejected 7 years, $158 million, we knew that he was looking for more than that. And it's not anything to do with Scott Boras, to be honest. I mean, right from the beginning, from the root of the problem, that was all Pete. That was Pete's call. It wasn't Scott Boras. He was not represented by Scott Boras when they made that offer. Not to mention, when they did make that offer, David Stearns was with the organization. So again, he ain't giving you anything close to that. It's not going to happen. When it comes to everything that looks out for Alonso, this is why I love David Stearns. This is why I'm such a big fan of David Stearns, because he understands the meaning of positional value as compared to just name value, name brand, name whatever he's going to do. Again, like I said, efficiency, 3 times out of 10. I think that when you're looking at the overall signings that he made last year or additions he made to the team, 3 times out of 10, they were a success, right? Bader and Taylor splitting with the way that splitting production in the first and second half, the way that they have of being part-time players. Shamanaya, Luis Severino, they were great. Even some of the in-season additions, bringing in, Luis Torrens, he was a great backup catcher. Like, there were a lot of moves that they made that were very efficient in the offseason with the lack of depth that they had or whatever. David Stearns worked with what he had. So obviously he has a little bit more flexibility now, and maybe he can overpay in some sense, but he's not just going to do that for just anyone. Again, Juan Soto, that was more of a Cohen thing. We know that it was more of just Cohen. It had to do with his wallet, of course. Any price was fine in terms of Juan Soto because of how rare of a talent he is. When it comes to Pete Alonso, and I agree with what David Stearns is doing right here 100%, I can do this all day, Pete, because that's how confident I am that he is going to end up coming back to the Mets. And listen, I am not someone who says 100% he's coming to the Mets. Remember how pessimistic I was about Juan Soto? At this current moment of where this is heading, Pete Alonso is coming back here whether he likes it or not. I'm telling you this right now, because as to what he thinks of himself, what he wants on this market, he's not getting anything better than what we have offered him. He's not getting anything better than $30 million a year in terms of, first baseman of comparing him. That would have made him the richest first baseman. That kind of screws up Vladdy's mark in that way. So maybe he'd be asking for $32 million in free agency. But when it comes to, let's say, 3 years, and he's not 30 years old like Pete Alonso, he's like 25. So it's a different type of thing.
And actually,
when it comes to the overall look at Pete Alonso, if this 3 years, $90 million is correct, right? If it is the deal, right? And he turned that down, if that's correct. Personally, I don't believe that was the case. Maybe it was the discussion of like 3 years.
I could see it though. I mean, we've talked about it with Steve Cohen's wallet. We've talked about higher AAV at shorter years.
I get it.
Is not a bad idea. I mean, instead of going, oh, I want to go 7 years at 25, and I'm paying the guy past age 35, when I could just go 3 years at 30. I mean, when it's all said and done, you look at the long term, like you're saying, oh, well, you're paying more this year.
Here's where I'm at here.
But you're paying less overall because it's less years.
Here's where I'm at here, all right? 3 years, $90 million. I'm looking at it for $30 million a year. I'm not looking at it for overall term, which obviously Pete Alonso wants. He's not going to get it because of the limitations he is as a player. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm not saying that he's declining and he stink. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is overall value compared to these other first basemen, $30 million a year is the best he is going to get. That is the best he is going to get. I understand him being, a prolific power hitter for 6 years. Maybe you would want, 9 figures in an overall contract, which, if you want to add another year, like 4 years, I'd be fine with that. But I'm not going anything past 5 years or anything. I'm not going past anything, of a certain AAV. To be honest, the $30 million, in my opinion, that's the most generous offer he could get at the trajectory that his market is looking like. I mean, look at this market. Seriously, look at this market again. Okay, Seattle Mariners, offensively starved team, strikes out a shit ton. Pete Alonso, that's a great fit. Fantastic. They didn't make the playoffs last year. Toronto, who the hell knows what they're doing right now? And they already have a premier first baseman who is making the most AV-wise in arbitration, who they'd like to keep. And then the Giants, nobody wants their money. They have too many right-handed bats. They're a platoon team. All those teams, besides the Mets, missed the playoffs last year. So if that's a situation you want to go into, Pete, by all means. Again, Pete, I can do this all day. I ain't making any other, again, and if that is true, that he turned down $30 million a year because he wants more years, I ain't talking to you for the rest of the offseason. That offer's on the table. Take it if you want to take it. And if you get a better offer, have fun, because you ain't getting a better offer. It's not going to happen.
And if that's the case, that would be twice that he had very fair offers that were different, and he turned down both of them. So that's pretty risky. I mean, you got to be pretty confident in yourself to actually do something like that. And then the other thing I'll mention too, we've actually talked about it, but we talked about how Toronto, especially this past season, had a good amount of talent in that lineup on paper, yet there were no results. And even with Seattle, we're like, what happened to some of these guys? Why are they not performing the way they should have, as we thought going into the season? So it's like, well, if they're showing you that they're not good at developing hitting or getting the most out of their hitters, why would you want to go there? I mean, you're not going to, if you want to go there on a short-term deal, you're not going to have a career year there. And like we said with San Francisco,
don't even get me started on Toronto's hitting development. Don't even get me started.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, is that even if he wanted a short-term deal with one of those other places, that's not how you're going to get more money in free agency.
No. I think it's these situations where your options are running out. And again, he is falling into our laps. He has no, like, he does not have any leverage. He does not. I mean, do you think, like, unless the Giants, again, 3 years, 90 million, let's say that's on the table, maybe I'd make another offer. Maybe I would, where you lower the AAV and make it a 4-year deal. Maybe I would do that. If you're cooperative with me, if you're nice to me, maybe I do that. You turn that down, or you just keep that offer on the table and you get a better offer from the Giants. Guess what, Pete? Enjoy San Francisco. Enjoy it. Again, I'm not going to the massive limits to sign Pete Alonso. It's just not going to happen. He's not that type of first baseman that Freddie Freeman is. He's not the first baseman that Matt Olson is. I don't want to hear, this constant overrating of him. And again, this is not me saying that Pete Alonso sucks and Pete Alonso needs to go. What I'm saying is we need to establish what his value is. That's what David Stearns continues to do with guys on the current market, and that's how you have to look at it. If you believe that he is worth $200 million going forward, I don't know what to tell you. Richard's saying Pete isn't anywhere close to Freeman. Absolutely, he is not. 100%. And if he wants more than, what was it, $166 million that Freeman got, granted a little bit older when he went to the Dodgers, again, and then Freeman's another example of, not going all in for your homegrown guy. Let's not forget what the Braves did. They were willing to move on. They were willing to do it. It's not like they were just chaining themselves to Freddie Freeman of this has to get done. At one point, they were just like, okay, let it move on. Let it go.